All right, good Wednesday evening, everybody. It's July 17th, 2024, and we're here at PreciseAlgorithmTrading.com. So, I'm not going to go through the futures tonight. Yesterday was a big time up day in the markets, and today was an interesting give back. Uh, this is exactly the kind of market or the kind of thing that happens in a market that is meant to knock traders off their heels. So, uh, I want to talk about it a little bit, but let's get into it. So, by the way, I figured out our futures down here. You have to have the under the setup tab, chart settings, under futures, you have to show the extended hours trading, um, and then the on balance volume shows up. So I just figured it out. I don't know why it even happens that way, but whatever. Now it works for all of these things, and I can still have it on my 10-year time frame. So, and all my numbers should show up fine. All right. So let's talk about what happened in the markets, and um, the big thing here is when you add everything together. If you look, zoom in here, which we can zoom back out again. Big down candle today, but not near as big as the up candle yesterday. So we gave back half of what the gains were when you add it all together. But that's not really the story. The story is that let's look at the industrials went up today. The and they continue to climb. So the actual Dow is up and closed at 41,221.98. I'm sorry, the high was that. The close was 41,198.08. So this is a very bullish move, but the big story that goes with that, so the Dow went up, continues to go up big. The Nasdaq's the one that gets you, and it went down 512 points, or 2.77%. Big red candle. The Nasdaq's been the one that's been just a killer index to be a part of, and the Nasdaq stocks like Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google are all poised for earnings soon. So let's look at Meta. All right, that should be Meta. Yeah, if I could type. Big down move lately, right? Into earnings. So, big future cloud. Let's keep an eye on that because I think the earnings are going to be positive. So, it's the market's like taking it down so that it can get positive earnings. That's just my guess about what's going on, and I will not hold it through that period. I will figure out what happens after earnings, and then we'll play it after that, is the way I'm going to look at it. This is a sell signal, but it happens to be going against all the moving averages. And so this is a bad signal, and this is a signal that you'd have to ignore. So just because there's a signal, and I could tell you what all that signal is based on, I've talked about it before. I mean, we're literally talking about these moving averages and the ribbons and the 15 and the 30 period moving average. You add all that stuff together, and I've got a nice ribbon that's sort of based on a lot of that. And you get a bullish move, and the 21, that's that one back there. And that's something you would get a hold of because all the moving averages are in the right direction and you're following the trend. This happens to be a pullback that's really hard to take if you're long. And this is the reason I'm not long, is after one or two candles of red and a close below the 21 period moving average, or the orange line here, I would get out regardless of what I'm in. So the and not to mention, I'm really trying to get out of things that are really close to earnings at this point. So let's look at Apple. Oops, not those two added together. So Apple's on a little pullback, but it's got earnings coming up too, and it's on a tear. Microsoft. I got my eye on Microsoft because I want to get back into this thing because it's one of the big power movers right now. Apple, Microsoft. I think Tesla is going to come back. I'm waiting on I think we'll get a pullback probably. Um, Probably based on earnings. There'll be some report that comes out, and then all of a sudden it'll get negated. And why? Because we're way up here. We need a pullback to kind of refresh things, and we have a big future bullish cloud. So, and everything is in the right direction, generally speaking. I'm not sure if everything is, but almost everything is. And that's how markets work. Trends. By the way, here's the Harvard lines. Look, we're above them. And are we going to close above them for the month? Well, that's what I'm going to wait to see, but I'm guessing so. And then we got a big bullish green candle in the month, and that's a reason to get in. Maybe not immediately until I get the pullback. That's what I'm going to be waiting for. I expect the pullback here. Oh, all right. So I don't want to go too far down this thing, but anyways, the S&P today, where are we? It went down 78 points, or 1.39%, while the Dow went up 0.5%, or 0.59 actually. So the Dow looks really strong. The S&P gives some back. Let's actually look at this on the futures because I think it's going to be cleaner. There we go. We got our on balance volume showing up on the futures and the big, give back candlestick. I'm not going to call that bearish because we're way up here. And let's count waves. 1 up, 2 down, 3 up, 4 down, 5 up. Now, that's really 3 waves up with the pullbacks in between. And you can get 5 waves pretty cleanly in a lot of cases. So there could be a finishing wave, but we could also get a nice pullback down into this zone, and we got a bullish cloud that would give us some reason to move higher going a little bit forward. And I'm going to show you some other reasons why I think the markets are going to get, as soon as we get past this earnings, I think things are going to climb again. And stuff's happening overnight because these earnings are all popping after we had kind of what I would call a rough day. But what you gotta not do is react. The market is full of different stocks. It's a market of stocks. So each individual stock's got its own character. And let's look at Nvidia because I do that. Nvidia's got a big down day today. Does that make it a bad stock? No. Is this a stock I would want to be buying right now? No. I mean, it's not a terrible idea to buy it because we got a bullish future cloud. We've got all the moving averages in the right direction, but we're below the 21, and I think it can come all the way back into this zone. We need to see something popping to get really wanting to get back into this thing. And we have earnings on 8/28, so that's a little ways out. So anyways, this is just an example, and if we look at each individual stock, you can see, and in fact, let's look at one that's popping, HPQ. This one's popping. It doesn't matter that the market went down today. So, and that's my point. And literally, and I've gone through rules before. When you get under the 21, you can either cut bait and wait for a new signal up, or you can set 2 pivots back and call that your stop, and you can just kind of take that heat. You have options, or choices I should say, to be able to make the play. Alright, that was the S&P, that was the Dow. Let's look at the Russell. So the Russell went down 24 points today. Here are the futures, and they're still pretty strong. And I think I told you yesterday, I had an IWM position on that took itself off the table because it made 100% profit. I had another one that made 50%. So my 2 options came off. My stock is still long. I could have taken some of the stock off, And the idea is when this pulls back to buy back in again, because there's no reason to think that that's not a fresh high that we are going to get a pullback on, and we're going to want to try to take out recent highs. Until we roll over in polarity, that is lower highs and lower lows, and we start breaking down underneath the 21 period moving average, this thing is bullish. This is a giant bullish candle on the monthly chart that looks like it's going to have follow through because of the squeeze fired long situation. That's a monthly squeeze fired long. That's a big deal. All right, the NASDAQ today, like I say, went down 512 points, and overnight it's up 64 points. Big red candlestick, a little bit of a bounce there if we zoom in. Going into tomorrow's candle already, and big bullish cloud going forward. However, we're up here at the, on the latest one of these is 1, 2, 3 targets. There are 5 targets because that's what I have designed, and we do have an upper like wick big time on this monthly candlestick that we have almost half a month left before we can call that a real thing. So we have some momentum that looks like it's trying to shift lower. On the daily, we got some momentum that's trying to shift lower. However, I don't know that we're going to. I think we're going to shift back up again before this cycle's over. This dark blue line in here, by the way, is a 34 period moving average. This is the 50 and the 100. We have the 2 ATR stop, which is just really 2 ATRs. So we can monitor this thing a ton of ways. All right, that's the overall markets, and it's the big thing is to not overreact on any positions. Really, you just have to have. If I was long the NASDAQ right now, I'd have to make a decision if I'm going to pull my stop up to the bottom of today's candle and expect a bounce, give it one more day. That's my choice, or go back to all the way to this pivot and give it room to breathe. Those are kind of my 3 choices, and I'm not long the NASDAQ, but I am long a couple other things that are in the same boat. I'm actually short a couple things that are in the same boat as well. So here's Bud. Let's look at Bud to give you an example. This thing's been popping, and I've got every reason to be short, except for I'm getting these like green signals. And so I do have a short-term stop. I think it's just above this pivot. So I'm going to leave this thing in place for tomorrow, but everything about this chart should be going lower. We had a big red candle on the last month's monthly chart, and now we've given it all back here. So it basically gets one more day, and that's it. It's just going to stop itself out. And if it doesn't, then it's going to roll over. Now, I wanted to get out way ahead of earnings, and we still have basically 2 weeks. So just an example of, I'm going to call this almost a failed trade, but not quite yet. All right, let's look at oil. So oil is a trade I'm in, and I believe I'm fully invested in a full position. This is that red candle I'm talking about. We got a red candle yesterday. I had to make a decision on what to do. So I went ahead and left my stop in place, which is at this pivot back here. I could have put my stop right below that, and in either case, this thing bounced. So it's back in the pattern, and the monthly chart looks fine. The daily chart looks fine. And that's not to say we can't come down here and even put in a lower spot from where it was without taking out the old pivot. And we have a bullish future cloud. I'm totally fine with hanging on to this position for now. Gold, which I'm not in, sure looks like it's ripping higher. I think we're going to get probably some pullback into this zone and possibly another chance to go even higher. Although I don't want to participate because of what this monthly chart looks like. It looks like it just doesn't have that far to go. I'm trying to find things that are new, fresh buys. ARKF was one. New, fresh after this big pullback, breakout, and a pullback. I want to ride that if there's something to ride. All right, that's just like I say, another example. Carvana actually is a bullish, really like big position for me. That's in. I mean, it's well in profit, and it gave back quite a bit today. But there's nothing about this chart to tell me to sell it other than I got earnings coming up. I do want to get out of it within a couple weeks, but I'm willing to let this volatility play out. All right. I think that's enough for tonight on that. Let's look at the VIX because it's the one that popped and made things get a little crazy today. So the VIX is up against all this. Are we going to get this high? I don't know. Probably not. And we'll just keep an eye on all that. So flip over to so this is the big bullish percent index of the New York Stock Exchange. And this is a big deal today. So we actually put in a point and figure buy signal off this gain of 0.96% or 0.96 points. I don't know which that is. But in any case, this is a point and figure buy signal, and I think that's going to drive markets higher. That doesn't mean we can't have a lot of volatility around in this zone like that, like we have before, but this is longer term bullish pricing. In fact, it says it right here. The market should now consider to be strong over the short term, and the short term for these guys is weeks to months. Now, this is the quicker bullish percent indexes that I like to look at every day and kind of make judgments. I mean, it's really just a backdrop to the judgments that we are making. So while things were a little crazy today, the bullish percent index of the industrials flipped to a new column of X's and is poised to go higher from what it looks like here. The NYA tacked on a new X, went up 2.16%. The transportation index tacked on 2 new X's. I'm waiting for a pullback so I can get in to potentially buy this thing. The IYT is the exchange traded fund for it. The NASDAQ is the one that pulled back hard today, but it only went down 0.14% on the bullish percent index. The S&P 500 tacked on a new green X today, even though it was down pretty substantial today. So this is what I'm saying is they move the prices to get you to get knocked off. And my point is if you don't have an actual technical signal, then there's no reason to get knocked off. That's the S&P. The S&P 100 up 1.54%. So I think there's a lot of waiting around to see what happens for earnings in the big stocks, the big players like that. And then the NDX rolled over to a new column of O's, down 20.97%. This is really where those big players are down. And based on what happens within the next few weeks in earnings, I think we could see this thing pop back up to a new column of X's. But that's just prognosticating. There's no need to have to prognosticate. You can literally get these signals that I look at here where these moving averages cross, they get in the right direction. By the way, I got a lot of ways to look at that, and when they get in the right direction, I like to buy on a pullback, even if it's a small pullback, and then ride the thing higher. I don't think you can really avoid these waves, so you have to be willing to take some drawdown while you're waiting on the gains, and that's the way it works. So that's what I got. Hope it helps And until next time, take care, guys. Good trading and have a great night.